Welcome back to Peterson Auto. Today we're working on a
'01 Saturn sc2. sc2 would dictate the dual
overhead cam engine there. We have a intake manifold we're doing. These things are kind of known for it. We'll see if we can get you a picture of the issue while we're in here. Okay. You can see kind of right down in here, there is a little fitting that is plastic and runs to a hose that runs over to your overflow tank. That little fitting is known to break. Let's see if we can get you a little more light in here. There we go. So now you can see that fitting broken off under there, and you can see why we have to replace this manifold. So that little broken off fitting is right down here is our problem. You can see this one's been JB welded to try to repair it, which did not work. So because of that little fitting, there's a bunch of little fixes you can do. You can go ahead and get a drill, get in there, drill it out, put a fitting in there that's brass or something. I don't want to get all that in the coolant system, and this really took me 20 minutes to pop all this other stuff off here and get down to the actual manifold. Manifold's fully unbolted at this point. It just needs two hoses disconnected and pulled out. So we're going to go through what you have going on as far as the disassembly of this goes. And since it's kind of a pain in the rear, I'm going to take you over to the bench for some of this here, just because it's going to give you a little better access. First thing though I want to cover is right here's your throttle cable. There are big and small notches in the square. So you can take a look there. You can see the big notch and the small notch. Those big notches, if you can see from this end, are little tabs. You push them in, it releases from the manifold. This cable goes right into here on the manifold, as you can see right there. Comes around and connects into this little plastic piece here. So that little plastic piece is going to be your throttle actuator, your throttle cam, whatever. Depends who you're talking to and what terminology they're using. But that is going to be what twists to cause your throttle to open. So you, once you have, before you have that out actually, you take the throttle cable itself, the little metal part here. You take this, which will be riding right in this groove, and you grab it about here, pull it out and around, and then you see that little notch right there, throttle cable slides out. So you have your throttle cable out. Now you can go ahead and start disconnecting sensors and everything. These are fairly simple. Just pry up on the clip and it pops right off. So you disconnect your sensors. You got one here, one here, one here. And there's one that mounts down over here. We'll see if we can get a better angle on that. There we go. There's one that mounts right down in here. This one's actually hard to see and hard to get to. You have a clip here that holds onto this metal part of the throttle body for the vacuum, which we'll show you is somewhere over here. Where did that get to? Okay, either way, it's a little clip. There we go. You have that little clip right there. It has tabs on, well, it's supposed to have tabs on either side. This one's all kinds of busted up, and yeah, that might have been part of a vacuum leak there. So I'm going to be probably replacing this too. But you just pull off on the tabs and that comes right off. And you'll have your fuel line. Runs over and across this little clip right here. As you can see, we'll go on to the nip I'll show you in a minute on the fuel rail. Comes across to about there. This retainer clip will go over this stud right here. So again, to get you a better view of it, right there is where the fuel, get that out of the way. Where the fuel rail clips on, you can see there's little tabs
on either side of this clip that sits up in the black clip you saw on the other view on the car there, and you depress that tab, and then the black clip comes off and this clear yellow plastic clip stays there. So then after that, you can take your fuel rail off. You have a nut here, a bolt here, and a bolt here. And then you're able to take the rail off. Make sure you depressurize it on the clip on the car here. There is a Schrader valve, tire valve. Same thing as you'd air down a tire. You just push in on the little silver part in the center there, and that'll allow all the fuel to spray out. A rag over that can contain the fuel a little bit, but that can be kind of hard. You get fuel all over, you get fuel all over. It's not going to kill anything. You can always wipe it up later. So after that, a little bit of pressure, a little bit of pulling, fuel rail pops out, and then you have a coolant hose here. You have 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4. Actually, we got a little better view. 1, 2, 3, 4 for the throttle body. After you've disconnected all of your, there we go. After you've disconnected all of your fittings off the throttle body, take those 4 bolts, that'll come out. There you go. You'll have your EGR tube over here. There's that simple retaining system there. There's a bolt going through there. And then that'll slide out of the cylinder head. You'll have your PCV valve hose, which goes right on there. Actually, yeah, that is a PCV valve hose. It goes right on there, runs across like that roughly, and connects into this port right here, which is your PCV valve. On the underside of the manifold, you have a few things to worry about. One is on the under backside is this here. That is actually to air. So there's a hose that goes on here. I didn't actually bother looking to see what it is, but there's a hose on here that needs to be removed. You have a bolt on the bottom that goes to this wonderful bracket. So there's a rubber bushing in the center. And that rubber bushing has a bolt that goes through it, and this bracket goes on like that. There's another bolt on this end, which we'll show you in a short bit here, so you know where that's at. You also have your knock sensor, if I recall. It looks like a knock sensor or coolant temp sensor. I didn't actually look at it too closely, but it's up on the side of the block, runs down through these 2 ports here. You'd have to disconnect that to get the rest of the wiring harness out of the way. When you disconnect your fuel rail, you have your fuel injector connectors here. These are a little different. You have to actually squeeze in on both of the metal tabs, as you can see there, and then pull off. Squeeze hard. You can kind of see there's a little notch there. The metal tab has to pretty much go the whole way in to that notch for it to actually come off. And maybe we'll see the action there. You can kind of see how they move. So metal tab has to almost go the whole way into the notch. Once it does, pops right off, no problem. This harness, as you can see, is loose and laying here. I'm going to try to work around it. However, there's also a connector on the alternator here, which we'll show you in a moment where the other connectors are. Okay, bear with me. I'm light in one hand, camera in the other. You can see that sensor sticking up there. That is where the knock sensor connects. The tab you pry up on is on the back side of that towards the block. I think it's a knock sensor, like I said earlier. Right there's your starter for location, and there's your oil filter, so you should know where those are at. If you look up here a little further, you're going to see the alternator, and you see that boot going on. That wire can stay, but you want to do it the easy way and remove the harness the whole way out. That orange connector on the right hand side needs to come out. I couldn't get to it by hand, so instead of crawling under here again, I'm going to just go ahead and try to work it around the harness. If I need to, I'll crawl back under. Right up there at the, hold that the right way, at the top of the screen, you can see there is a little U-shaped notch in the bottom of the manifold. That is where that bracket I spoke of earlier is connecting. And up in there is that hose, which even from under here I can't see exactly where it may run. But that hose there will need disconnected also and removed from the manifold. At that point, all you have left is the nuts holding the manifold on. If we look closely, we may be able to see them. But they were a 13 mil and everything else was an 8 or a 10 mil. So 8 mil, 10 mil, and a 13 mil should get you what you need. Last thing I want to bring up is going to be the access for the bolts that hold the manifold on. It's kind of hard to see here, but they're down in here between each runner, and there's one back in here. Now, there's a bracket that goes from the back of the power steering pump right there to this boss on the head. That bracket is over on the workbench and does need removed. Again, a 8 or 10 mil did that without any issues. After you remove that, you can get to the side nut holding the manifold on. It's on a stud. It's actually underneath to this side of the runner here. Very hard to access. I'm going to show you what I used to get that done, which involves a wobble extension, a 13 millimeter 1/4 inch drive socket, and another extension to get the right length. When you bring this back over, rough numbers wise, you can see right where that sits. And this will actually fit the 1/4 inch drive between the power steering pump and the manifold. And that should make it nice and easy compared to doing it somehow else to get that out. You don't actually have to pull a power steering pump. So we'll have a review here on the reassembly at one point here. When I get everything put back together, we'll go through the reassembly process and give you a view of that, and maybe even a run video if I feel like it after everything's fixed and repaired. Okay, right here, well, that port there is your MAP sensor, manifold absolute pressure sensor. This boss here has a little clip that's held in with a Torx, the T20. Yeah, T20 looks like it fit. So I wanted to mention you will need a T20 for that. And back over to the car here. I got most of everything back together. Need to put the intake back on. Okay, one thing I noticed here, you do have to remove this here motor mount, engine mount. Take off the 5 nuts that are on studs. So you got one here, here, up front here, and then one in the back. After you take those off, these 2 studs happen to come out with them. We'll deal with them later. Remove this here engine ground, which is on the back stud there. Tuck that out of its way, and then the mount will wiggle its way out. Might need some prying and wiggling. You will have to support the engine with a jack from the oil pan. I have one under there now. You can use a block of wood or something to distribute the load, but the engine doesn't weigh that much. Unless you're trying to lift up the entire car by it, you shouldn't have any issues with the oil pan. So that's where I'm at right now. We're going to get that out. We're going to get that old intake manifold pulled out, and then we're going to start putting it back together. One thing very few videos seem to mention is that this intake manifold is horrendous to get out. So I did pull the motor mount, as I said earlier, and doing this one person, yeah, I could not push and maneuver and everything else at one time. So the old block of wood trick actually came in handy. Just pry the motor out, engine out, sorry, motors are electric. Pry the engine out, and then push the block of wood in between the firewall and the power steering pump. Make sure you hit the pump, not the plastic reservoir, but the pulley or the actual cast pump there will work, and that will hold it in place. So once I get these tightened down, get everything routed where it needs to go, I'll pull this block of wood out. Okay, so way down in here, underneath this intake runner, is a nut that has to be installed on. I use the magnetic pickup tool, holding the nut, put it down on this side, and then
It went down on this side. I took my hand over on this side between the 1 and 2 intake runners, and I installed it that way. Got the tool in place with a nut on the end of it, and then held it onto the end of the stud. You can kind of see sticking out here or over here. Held it onto that end, removed the tool, and then spun it. We got the ground back on, all the fuel injectors, the rail, that's on, fuel lines on, all the sensors are plugged back in, all the clamps are on, and after this we're going to start it up and get it on out of here. So looks like this is going to be the end of the video here today. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, or comment all you want. You know, if there's anything you'd like to see, again, I'll be willing to take that job on to give a better explanation of the process involved. Thank you for watching.